Hey fellas, this is Dr. Varun Gandhi, and thank you for tuning in to the Gandhi TV, your one-stop shop to elevate your consciousness. So welcome guys. Today in this episode we're going to talk about hugs. What does it mean to hug? When do we hug? Why do we hug? What do we do it for? What happens when we hug? How do we feel when we hug? And why should we do it more? So these are some questions that we're going to talk about today. To hug means to be tender of, to embrace, to congratulate, or to be pleased with oneself. And this is Webster's dictionary, to cherish. That's the one that stuck out to me the most, to cherish. That was not in Google, again, that was on Webster's dictionary's website. To cherish. So what does that mean? You know, when we get into a hug, we're in close proximity to each other, right? You're coming into my zone of where I'm uncomfortable. Usually I don't want people to come within 1 foot, one hand space around me. But in a hug, you're coming into my airspace. You know how in countries, when planes of a different country flies over your airspace, you're violating their airspace. The same way a hug, in essence, violates your airspace, my airspace. But we're giving consent to it, we're allowing it to happen because we're putting into it love. You're infusing that hug with love. So that when we hug another person, we're transferring the energy of love to them. At least that's what I do. Anytime I hug anyone, I'm transferring love to them. From my heart to theirs. Just infusing it with love. All it takes is 2 seconds, but they'll notice the difference. So this close proximity actually allows an exchange of energy to happen, right? Because when I'm sending them love, if they're in a state of accepting it, that's an exchange of energy. I transferred love over to them. I transferred some energy of love over to them. They accepted it. Now this is a sacred energy exchange. Sex. Sacred energy exchange. Sex. That's the true meaning of sex. So in any which way you exchange energies. If you and another partner, business partner, friend, or your spouse, or girlfriend, boyfriend, any kind of partner are exchanging ideas, you're exchanging energy. That's a sacred energy exchange. So when do we do this sacred energy exchange? In what situations? You know, thinking about my life, the times I do it, or when I'm greeting someone, when I meet them, not for the first time usually, but after the second time, I'd give them a hug. Like, hey, I've met you before, I'm familiar with you, I love you, giving you a hug. I cherish you, I'm giving you a hug. I accept you, I'm giving you a hug. So when I'm greeting someone, when I'm departing, when I meet up with friends and I'm departing, even a first-time person, if I meet them for the first time and they're departing, I'll give them a hug. I'm transferring my energy to them. I'm still giving them a hug, even if it's for the first time. But every time I meet someone, every time we depart, there's an energy exchange. Finally, when I'm consoling someone, empathy, empathizing with them, I'll give them a hug. Oh, and also thanking them. You know, when you receive a gift, you want to thank someone from the bottom of your heart, you give them a hug. At least that's one form of thanking someone. You could give them a kiss, and there are other ways, but a hug is also one of them. So now when you give someone a hug, what happens inside of you and inside of them? And so in this energy exchange, we're altering our states as well. Meaning biochemically, what's happening is when you're hugging someone, you are releasing chemicals within your body that make you feel good. So specifically, you're releasing oxytocin, which is the same chemical you release when you're bonding socially. And you release that chemical to push away the fear and the anxiety in social situations so you can go and be yourself, be open, be free, be who you are while you're, talking with your friends or networking or, meeting someone for the first time, going on a date, whatever it may be, whatever the situation is. Releasing oxytocin as a sign of trust and love, to the point where the fear, anxiety is pushed away and you are there being who you are, being your natural self. And certain people are even comfortable with farting in public, if they're truly themselves. That's who I am. I had to let one go, I let one rip. It's simple. That is a lesson to learn from them as well, but that's a story for a different day. So this biochemical reaction of releasing oxytocin in your system transmits friendliness, openness. Now you're open to bonding with people. You're open to sharing, open to receiving. The second thing it does, hugging, it lowers the cortisol levels. So cortisol is a stress hormone. Anytime you're under higher than usual amounts of stress or undergoing anxiety, you let your guard down, and or you're putting your guard on, basically. You're putting your guard on, meaning, in that case, you're letting your guard down. You're allowing your guard to go down, and this is a sign of absence of hostility. Meaning you're coming into a situation and you're hugging someone, letting him know that I'm not going to be hostile. I'm not here. I'm come here in peace. The saying, I come here in peace. We come here in peace. Hug. That's the sign of peace. Absence of hostility. Finally, the third thing is that it lowers your blood pressure. It lowers your blood pressure. So metaphysically, spiritually, what that means, the reason we have high blood pressure is because of stress, because of higher than usual amounts of stress on your body. The physical manifestation of that stress is high blood pressure. So it starts off energetically, where you're working yourself over time. You're stressing out for for small situations where you could have managed it properly. So all these little things is building up stress in your day, in your life. And at some point, that manifests. Once it manifests energetically, and it's only time when it manifests physically. So it lowers blood pressure. So 3 main reasons why we should hug more. And here's the 4th. There was a study, there was a report in media where somewhere in Eastern Europe, in all the orphanages around Eastern Europe, the nuns, the workers who worked there, the teachers, they didn't know the importance of hugging for some reason. I guess it goes along with the stereotyping that Russians aren't very emotional people. They're not known for hugging and expressing their emotions. And the kids in these orphanages, when they grew up, they had a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, a lot of health issues, all the way up until death. The importance of hugging is that over time, over many, many years of negligence, of not having that affection, that cherishing, weakens you, weakens your immune system, and attacks your body. Of course, this manifests over time. The repeated patterns. What repeats is what actually happens in your life. It's a repeated pattern of energetic manifestation, which then shows up in our physical reality as blood pressure, as eventually as death as well. So this is not just with hugging. I mean, hugging it happens with hugging, but it also happens with other things. So I don't want to say that hugging is the only cure of this. No. But it is one, and it is an important one. Daily practice of hugging is an important self-love technique. Whether you hug your pillow, which releases certain memories, that releases those chemicals biochemically in your body, or you hug a teddy bear, a stuffed toy, a pillow, a stuffed toy, or you hug your spouse, or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a pet, whatever it may be, whoever it may be, just hug. So start hugging people. That's the generation we're in. I'm a natural hugger. I try to hug people even if I've met them for the first time. Another thing important about hugging is the way you hug. The way we hug, the duration of the hug, the body touching, the way the arms wrap around you or the other body, so the movement of the arms and the pressure of the arms, all of these are signs of closeness in relationship, right? So I'll give you an example. As my dad, every time I see him, he lives across country in Atlanta, Georgia. And every time I see him, he's so happy and so ecstatic to see me that he literally squeezes my body completely. It's like a bear hug, like a bear hugging me. No joke. And I love it, but I feel like his squeeze, he's so happy and joyful to see me. And it's a long duration too, He keeps it for a while until I say, "Oh, Dad, you're cracking my ribs." So closeness in relationship will definitely determine how you hug. Him and I do bear hugs, so we're frontal, front to front. Most people that I love, I do front to front. Most people in general, I do front to front because that's the most body contact. That's the most entering someone else's space and someone is entering my space. The most vulnerable, most uncomfortable position to be in. Two bodies touching each other, if you think about it. We're not used to, in America, to have two bodies touching. So here we don't really hug too much. We're not brought up in a culture of hugging. But within the Indian subculture in America, we are known huggers. Most of us like to hug. There are some certain people that cannot hug. And they hate it because it's their emotional state. They're not in a position to want to hug. They feel uncomfortable because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, there might be some self-esteem issues, there might be some self-confidence issues where they just don't want to hug. And they say, oh, I'm not a hugger. But there are some emotional issues behind it, some energetic blockages behind not wanting to hug, because it is normal and natural for us to hug. Historians have found it in apes back when in the day to show as a sign of affection, a sign of friendliness, as a sign to release tension. So hugging has been around for a long time. So if you're not a hugger, then that's not normal. And that means that there is some sort of energetic block in your emotional body, possibly your mental body as well. You know, and it's unfortunate that in those cases when you have high anxiety, and it's unfortunate that in those cases when you do have high anxiety, when you do have lack of self-confidence or lack of self-esteem, and you know that a hug will make you feel better, will release these chemicals, well, at least now you do. But it's in those cases when you don't have the initiative to ask for it because you lack all those things. So it's a self-defeating cycle where you're getting caught up in it because your emotional state is telling you, oh, I don't want to hug. But you know you're mentally that if I hug, I'm going to start feeling better emotionally. But then there's a lot of fear and anxiety in your mind that arises and puts you in resistance to hugging. And so now your emotional state and your mental state collaborate with each other and say, okay, let's just not hug. So mentally, whenever someone asks you to hug and you're saying, oh, I'm not a hugger, and then you come up with some reason, germs. So here, as an exercise, really just start hugging, man. I mean, if you're uncomfortable with it, start with close ones, pets, children. It's a safe environment, you know, somewhere at home. Or you could, you know, visualize yourself hugging. If you can't even approach someone, a closed one, a loved one to hug, what you could do is just visualize yourself hugging a loved one. Maybe it's your kid, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's you know, some family member, or even a pet. You just visualize yourself, close your eyes, and just put energy into thinking about this person, approaching that person, coming in closer. Okay, I know I feel the resistance inside of me. There is resistance in my body, and I feel it in a certain part of my body. In my root, I don't have security. So you feel it in your root chakra. And while you're visualizing, just let it go. Let that feeling go. Let that fear go. What would that look like? How would that feel if you just let it go? Knowing that the minute you open your eyes, you're out of this exercise. How does that feel? What if you're just with that fear and just observe it? Don't let it take you in. Just observe it. What is it telling you? What does it feel like? Where do you feel it in your body? And over time, as you work with this energy, with this blockage, you'll see it start releasing. Actually, you know what you could do? You could start breathing into it. So let's start breathing into this blockage and start releasing some of the energy. So when you breathe in, imagine filling it up, that chakra, with positive energy. And when you breathe out, remove the negative energy. Still keeping in the positive energy though. Taking 3 deep breaths to clean out your root chakra and to release the energy that's blocked there. You know, as you move in closer to this person, and you get into, or they get into your uncomfortable space, something else will trigger you. Observe that trigger. Watch it. What does it tell you? How does it feel? Go in closer now. Is it the same fear as the first time around? What does that feel like? Go in closer. Your bodies are touching. Just be there in this hug. Just visualize it. How does it feel? Get comfortable with it. Yeah, you may not get this the first time. That's perfectly okay. Come back to this exercise. It might take you 20 days of continuing this exercise to actually get to the point of your bodies touching in the visualization, and that's perfectly okay. Take the baby steps, but every day get one step closer. Because that's the end goal, right? Is to improve yourself, even if it's just a little bit every day, but improve yourself. That's the key. And slowly, when you're done with this visualization, you could open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, and come back to this video. I just have a little more left to talk about. Welcome back, guys. So if you are uncomfortable with hugging, please continue using this visualization technique to get your comfort level up so you could go and apply this into real life. Hugging is a powerful, powerful stress reliever. It releases natural biochemicals in your body. I mean, what more could you want? It's like releasing drugs into your body. You're actually shooting up with cocaine, kind of. But it's natural drugs. You want these things to be released in your body. The last thing I'm going to talk about when I was researching is I realized that there is a huge divide in the people who hug and people who don't hug. There are a lot of people that even after knowing someone for a long time, they just stick to a handshake as opposed to a hug. And I thought about this. I got curious about it, because that is an interesting question. Why are there a vast majority of people who stick to handshake, especially in the corporate culture? And there's so many laws around even opposite sex, touching each other, because it could be misconstrued. And so corporate culture actually prevents it now, prevents this from happening. Because they know the power behind hugs. It's simple. So why are there a certain group of people that only shake hands? And what does that symbolize? Handshake is mainly, primarily between males. If you really look at it, it's a programming in males for them to shake hands, for us to shake our hands and not hug. We're innately taught to just shake hands. But in certain societies in this world, the way you shake your hand implies a certain position in the hierarchy. So that means that handshakes are for the ego. Handshakes are to determine control, establish dominion. It's the mind establishing control over other minds. And that's what the handshake is. You know how they say the stronger the handshake, the more firm the handshake, the more powerful the handshake, all these things. What is it? It's the mind affirming its importance, the ego really affirming its importance over another ego. And it's at a distance. You extend your hand, you don't come in close, right? In business situations, you extend your hand outside of you, at least a foot. This is outside of your zone of comfort, your personal space, your personal airspace. Just beyond it, or just at the edge of it. So handshakes are for the mind. There is no love behind it. There is no feelings behind it. It's just a mind-to-mind ego activity. And you look at certain cultures, the Indian culture, for example, every time I see older uncles meet up, like my parents' age, them and their families meeting up, there is no hugging. There's always a handshake. Why is that the case? It's because of this ego dominance. It's because of this mind-focused society that we've come into. Where the whole goal of the mind is to suck the energy out of the heart, so that the mind establishes control over everything and uses everything for its benefit. It's kind of like what's happening in society right now. And that's what's happening with this handshake hugs. Hugs is the heart, the love coming in, the trust building, the friendship, the gratitude, the empathy. That's what the hug signifies, the closeness in relationship. You're entering someone's personal airspace, making them vulnerable. You're entering your vulnerable state. And there's a transfer of energy. In handshake, there's none of that. It's very minimal, but it's also blocked by the ego, so there's no transfer of energy whatsoever. Because it's an ego level. The heart is where the energy is transferred. So when you're loving, you're transmuting that love. And if others are in their heart, they're accepting that love. That's why I've made it my habit to always hug now. Handshakes are for the past. That was a time when I was a consultant, when I was working for corporate, where handshakes would be my thing. I would still hug, but it was only family members outside of corporate life. But now, I'm just gonna hug. And I'm going to avoid situations and places where hugs are not appreciated anyways. I don't want to be there. That's not my vibe. Right? So let's make hugs our thing, not handshakes. Handshakes is the old paradigm. Hugs are the new paradigm. And I've already seen that. It happens often. Everywhere you go, you see people hugging. So you already see that on the streets. There's a certain group, a certain culture that needs to topple, that needs to fall down. And hugs are the only way to do it. Spreading that love, sharing that affection, transferring that energy. I'm going to leave you with this story. I'm part of this organization called the Gujarati Society of Southern California. And when I go to the board meetings, The board consists of older males. In these meetings, we're always, when there are older males around, it's always a battle of the egos, many cases. Not always, many cases. And within the Indian community, it's even stronger because there are so many egos. We all know this. So in these meetings, before I get there, before we start the meeting, I hug everyone. I don't care who they are. If I've met them for the first time or not, I hug them. They shake their hand out, I take their hand and I pull them in and give them a hug. And here's why this is important. Throughout the meeting, both myself and my wife, we're both huggers. People, when they talk to us, they respect us. They talk to us out of love because we had that energy exchange. It's like they're having a heated argument on one side with someone else, and when they turn around and talk to us, they're calm, respectful, out of a space of love. And you can notice that difference. You notice it. You watch it, you'll notice it, right? The energy coming your way is completely different because you infuse that love into them. You gave them that hug and you passed on that love energy to them. So one thing is that they're vibrating higher already when you transfer that energy. So now this meeting is starting off from a better place. But understand the egos can come in, the mind can take over at any time and dominate because that's what it's used to doing. So when the mind dominates, the heart is left behind. But now when they talk to us, they come back and into a space of the heart. And that's how they approach us. So just by hugging, there already is a huge difference in the energy. Especially the energy directed towards you from them. So the power of a hug happens on every level. So the power of a hug happens on every level, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and physically. You feel different. So let's start hugging, guys. We need more hugs. We need to give out this love into this world, especially us light workers. And I know we do a good job of hugging. We meet random strangers and we're, hey, let's hug. So I know we're already there. Things are changing, things are shifting. I see that. I just wanted to pass this message on about the power of a hug. A simple act of hugging transforms your mind, body, spirit system. And I experience this every day when I'm giving my wife a hug and she hugs me back. There's so much energy transfer, her state automatically shifts. I vibrate in a state of love for most of my day. At least I try to. I work on that every day. I know when she comes back home from a tired and stressful day, when I give her that hug, that's when her shoulders drop. She releases her tension for the day. And she starts vibrating higher in love too. So I know hugs are transformative, especially when there's love behind it. All right, guys, so let's start hugging people. Got it? Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Love and abundance to you. This was an amazing, amazing discussion about hugging. And let's continue having more of these. Please, please, if you enjoy these conversations, subscribe to my YouTube channel and let everyone else know I do what I do just to spread love and to elevate the consciousness of Earth. You can find me on all social media, just Dr. Varun Gandhi, and you'll find me. And I'd love to hear from you guys. So please comment, please post, please like this video if you enjoyed it, and let me know that you're listening in. That would be wonderful. So thank you guys. Love and abundance to you. And I will catch you tomorrow. Love. And hug. 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 That's a hug for you guys. Peace.